So guys, today what we're doing is basically October, November 2019. We're doing paper two. It's the most recent paper, so that will be good for us in terms of practice. So let's read quickly let's read quickly together so that we can have a sort of understanding. And when you have any questions, you can unmute me while I'm reading this. I mean, you can stop me while I'm reading this. Okay? Are we good? Any questions? Okay, let's start. So, guys, this is a data response which says driverless cars and advances in technology. It is predicted that driverless cars powered by electricity will be on roads by 2030. So there will be cars that will be driven by electricity and no driver will be driving it. Driverless cars have already been tried out on the roads in some cities, including Pittsburgh in the USA. It is thought that driverless cars will reduce accidents. So number one, will reduce accidents. That's an advantage. Will have low repair costs and will create less pollution. So there are three advantages we can see of driverless cars. Because they will be driverless, there will be less accidents because they will have better sensors and so on. They will basically have a lower repair cost because of course less accidents will be taking place, and maybe they create less pollution because they will be electric cars, which means environmental friendly. At first, the supply of driverless cars may exceed the demand, but it is expected that they will soon grow in popularity. So they believe supply will be greater than demand, but with time, they will become so popular that their demand will go up, and therefore they will become the norm. As more driverless cars come into use, the demand for bus travel and petrol stations may decline. So these guys become substitutes. Demand bus travel and therefore petrol stations may decline. Why? Petrol stations will decline because you have these cars which are run by electricity. So that will be the case. And some taxi drivers may be made redundant. Why would taxi drivers lose their job? Because of course there will be low tax. So basically, can I say buses and taxis will be what we call substitutes. Do you all agree with me that? Yeah. Do we all agree that buses and taxis are substitutes? In contrast, the increased access to transport that driverless cars will give to people, including the elderly, is likely to increase demand for out-of-town restaurants and places. So they're saying that, like because somebody else is driving for you, suddenly you have more demand for people for out-of-town restaurants and places of entertainment, which were right now probably are far away. So you have a new market where people would love to take long distance drive because they're not driving it to begin with. Do we get that? Does that make sense? Yeah. So it has been forecast that the technology being developed in connection with the driverless cars will make supply of them elastic. Why would make the supply of them elastic? Because if they're saying that the technology being developed in connection with the driverless cars will make the supply of them being elastic, which means that very responsive to a change in price. So let me write this: very responsive to change in price. And this is basically, they're not saying demand elastic, they're saying supply elastic. Supply elastic means when the demand goes up, supply can quickly catch up. And the reason why supply can quickly catch up is because you have what we call a better technology. So it is predicted that an 8% rise in the price of driverless cars could cause a 20% change in quantity supplied. Before even, like, if I ask you guys, what is the price elasticity of supply? Anyone can tell me what is the PES value here? PES value, can somebody calculate that for me? Ibrahim or Hana or Hania, anyone who can tell me what the PES value will be here? What's the formula for PES? PS is percentage change in quantity supplied over percentage change in price. So in this case, your value is going to be, anyone guys? If I look at the values, it's going to be numerator will be 20%. Isn't that true? Divided by change in price will be 8%. That's 20 over 8 or 10 over 4 or 2.5. Do you guys agree with me? Are you all happy with this value? 2.5. Why 2.5? Because percentage change in quantity supplied is 20% over percentage change in price is 8%. Siddharth and Sue, are we agreeing to it? Abhi?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so moving on. Advances in technology and the replacement of workers by machines are forecast to destroy 80 million jobs. They're saying 80 million jobs will be destroyed because of technology and replacement. Job losses are also forecast in other countries, and trade unions are likely to be less able to resist these due to a fall in membership and governments reducing the power of trade union. So they're saying that, like trade unions, who are basically unions that are formed to protect the workers, will not be able to do so, primarily because there is a power, the power of trade union will fall because workers are no longer needed or they are being replaced by technology. Among the jobs, though, among the jobs thought to be at risk are accountants who can be replaced, train drivers, and financial advisors. Now, this is funny. A lot of times we're thinking about, like going on accounting and finance, but basically technology can replace accountants, train drivers, because that could be driven by complete machinery, computers, and financial advisors are also basically because like there could be a possibility that financial advice can be totally given through computers. Demand for workers in other occupations, including doctors and dentists, may increase. So doctors and dentists may still be strong in demand, but there's a risk that unemployment may rise overall, like because there's so many people who will lose job. The more educated workers are, the more easily they can move from one occupation to another. What do we call this kind of mobility when you can go from one occupation to another? Anyone who can tell me what is this kind of mobility? This is called occupational mobility. Do you guys get that? This is called occupational mobility. Why? Because you can easily move from one occupation to another. Very good, Yushra and Ibrahim. Good job. Okay, so then they gave you a data. They said these are the 1, 2, 3, 6 countries. Education spending as a percentage of GDP is given, and unemployment rate. You can see, guys, if education as a percentage of GDP is the highest in USA, and unemployment rate is also the lowest here. Okay, the highest unemployment rate is sort of South Africa, and the lowest education spending as a percentage of GDP is done by Argentina. Okay, we can come back to this table in a little while. Job selling houses and flats may decline, but it is expected that the demand for building workers may increase. So building workers may find themselves to be employed more. Some people welcome house building in their areas, but others oppose it. Now let's look at some of the questions. Identify from the extract 2 pairs of substitutes. So any 2 substitutes that you can see, guys? Any 2 substitutes that we can see?
Buses and taxis.
Sir, buses and taxis.
Very good. Buses and so bus travel and taxi travel, that is one good. Very good. Any other substitute we can see? Remember, what are these electricity driverless cars replacing? They- yeah, so we can also say driverless cars and taxis, or driverless cars and buses. Isn't that true? So, guys, one could be your driverless cars and taxis, also buses and taxi, bus travel and bus travel or buses and taxis could be the second example. So did they say two? We got them two. Okay. Are we good to move on? Calculate using the information the price elasticity supply of driverless cars. And we found that the price elasticity of supply is percentage change in quantity supplied over percentage change in price. And the value is 2.5. Isn't that true? So this is 20% divided by 8% or 2.5. So the value here will be 2.5. Are you all with me? Does that make sense? Any questions before we move on?
No.
Yeah, so we'll get 2 marks. 2 marks for the. I missed out B, but I'm so sorry, guys. I just saw B. I calculated C. Let's go back to B. Explain using the information from the extract whether the market for driverless car is expected to be in equilibrium in 2030. Do you think the market will be in equilibrium in 2030? What do we mean by equilibrium?
Where
When the quantity supplied is equal to quantity demanded.
Very good job, Siddharth. So quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. And if you look at the paragraph here, they say this, that at first the supply of driverless cars may exceed the demand, but it's expected that they will soon be growing in popularity. Okay, but they're saying that it is predicted that driverless cars will be on roads by 2030. So 2030, you may not see this to happen because supply may be greater than demand. So in 2030, do you expect to have an equilibrium? And the answer is no. Quantity supplied may be greater than quantity demanded, which means there will be a surplus. There won't be an equilibrium, there will be a surplus. Equilibrium is when quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied. And the reason is that it will take some time before the cars can become popular. Make sense? So that's why in this case, our answer is going to be no, and that will be the reason. Make sense? Are we good?
Yeah.
Let's look at this one, D. Explain using information from extract. Explain using information from extract two external costs that driverless cars could reduce. What is external cost?
Pollution.
Yeah.
External cost is effect to the third party, cost to the third party.
Exactly. So this is the third party costs, and basically that could be, and they've given this in the paragraph here. They've said this, that the demand for bus and petrol stations may decline, but more importantly, they're saying this, that there will be lower pollution, right? There will be lower accidents, lower repair costs, and pollution. So you can say two external costs could be accidents will be lower, plus there will be lower pollution, because these are electric cars. Okay, it's a 4-mark question, which means they require us to talk about, first of all, what is external cost, right? Number one is what is external cost, and number two will be, guys, the idea that accidents, which could also be a third party cost. Let's say if I'm driving really fast and I end up sort of hurting somebody, that's an external cost. Similarly, pollution is basically a third party cost as well, right? Ibrahim, you're saying, sir, what is the graphical representation of part B? I can show you graphical representation in 1 minute. just for our reference. In fact, let's just talk about graphical representation. So graphical representation, if somebody says is this, that the quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded, or there is a, like if this is my sort of P naught demand, right? And if somebody's saying quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded, basically that would mean you are having a surplus kind of a situation. So maybe right now you might have set a price like P1, where probably right now your quantity supplied is at point B, quantity demanded is at point A, and therefore you have a situation of a surplus. Do we get it? Does that make sense? So that's the representation of it. Are we good? Any questions, guys? Okay, so moving on. Then we have this question which says, analyze using table 1.1 the relationship between educational spending and the unemployment rate. So if you look at this table, guys, do you see any relationship happening? Is there any relationship that we can see between unemployment rate and the spending? Anyone? If you look at this, guys, if you look at this table, right now, an important thing is that we have 5 marks. Are you all with me? 5 marks basically means we're spending almost 10 minutes on this one. So you are looking at information. So Ibrahim is saying some more educational spending, less unemployment, but with a few exceptions. That's a very good answer. You can see this. First of all, what do we first need to talk about is basically what do we expect to be the relationship between educational spending and unemployment rate. And what you're saying, Ibrahim, is perfectly okay. We're saying that when you have more education spending, we assume that the unemployment rate should be low. So countries like, for example, USA has the highest education spending and therefore lower unemployment. Next up is, you're also looking at New Zealand to do the same thing, right? Unemployment is low. The next country is, if you look at it, is Ghana, but unemployment is high. So I'm going to color this with this color. Similarly, you have this country, very high unemployment, and Brazil, you have unemployment. So can I say this? It seems like, first of all, we expect that countries that are spending more on their education will be suffering from low unemployment rate because people can easily move from one occupation to another. There's an important line that they said this, that if you read this guy's line, that the more educated workers are, the more easily they can move from one occupation to another, and therefore the lower we assume the unemployment will be. So that's the first thing we need to talk about. But you see that happening for New Zealand and for USA, that they are pretty high in terms of spending. However, if you look at countries like, for example, Ghana, or if you look at a country like, for example, South Africa, that doesn't seem to be the case. Make sense? Also for me, by the way, Argentina, who's spending 5.3%, has a pretty low unemployment rate. Do you all agree with this? Does that make sense? So in this question, you kind of like analyzing the data and telling them that, first of all, we should have a relationship where higher the education spending as a percentage of GDP, lower should be your unemployment rate. Okay, that should be the first thing that you should focus on. But then you say this isn't really happening here, and you talk about why it's not happening here and so on. Are we good, guys? Does that make sense? Any questions before we move on? So in this question, do we get the idea? And that's why you were given 5 marks. So you're talking about what's the relationship, which means the relationship basically is positive, more education spending, negative, more education spending, less unemployment. Why? Because people can be very mobile. What countries is showing this data to be true? USA and New Zealand. Which countries are not showing it to be true? Argentina, for the fact that they're spending this much, but they have a low unemployment rate. And also Ghana and South Africa, who seem to be spending higher than Argentina, yet they have unemployment rate higher. South Africa is a big exception to it. Okay. So that's what the answer will be for this one. Okay, let's look at F. Are we going to move on to F? Is there any question before we move on to F?
Sir, can you repeat the E part again?
E part mein, the thing that it's saying is that you need to tell us the relationship between education and unemployment. Higher the education, lower the unemployment, because more education gives you an opportunity to move from one occupation to another. So that's first thing. Then you talk about which country is showing this to be true, and we saw New Zealand and New Zealand is showing that, and USA is showing that, but some countries are not showing it. Which are they? South Africa, and for me Ghana also, which is spending more than 6%, yet the unemployment is more than 10%. Okay, let's move on quickly because we spent more than necessary time here. But let's look at this one. Discuss whether or not an increase in house building will benefit the people who live in the area. So an increase in house building, will it benefit or not? So this is guys, in this kind of a question, when they say discuss, this is basically more like pros and cons, or agree or disagree kind of a question. And if it's a question which is for 5 marks, you will be given marks for both sides, why it is and why it's not. Okay, so when you're looking at this one, discuss whether or not an increase in house building will benefit the people who live in the area. First of all, when you're building more houses, what will be the benefit of it? The first thing will be more houses would mean higher supply of houses, which could mean basically lower prices, because supply goes up, price goes down. That could be one benefit. Number two could also be a benefit, could be, like when you have better housing, automatically you have more sort of economic development that will take place. There will be possibility of more jobs. So unemployment will go down. There will be a higher standard of living for people who live there. And normally we see this, that in areas which are developed, you will have better schools and hospitals. So that could be the advantage here. The disadvantage, guys, is basically, so because we need to give both the sides, so make sense? So what's the disadvantage here? The disadvantage will be to do with the idea that can there be anything that can be not good for the people who live here, or not good for the people in the area? One of the things people argue when there is a lot of development like this is happening, yeah, very good job. A very good point, Ibrahim. There will be pollution that can happen. So these are third-party costs. They could be overcrowded sort of roads. Like now, phase 8, for example, where there are a lot of schools, there's a lot of overcrowding, uh, which could be a problem. Also, when resources are used for one thing, there could be an opportunity cost as well. Opportunity cost of, for example, if you decide to provide more of houses means less of something else. Make sense? So you could talk about 3 points here, 3 points here, and that could be a good answer for this one, for F. Disturbance is very good. That could be also a very good point. Amit is saying there could be disturbance for the households, for the neighborhood. That could also happen. Make sense? Let's move to G now. Explain using information from the extract 2 reasons why the power of trade unions may decline in the future. Why do you think the power of trade unions may decline in the future? And they're saying use the information that is given here. So when you look at the information that is given here, they're saying this, that better technology and the replacement of workers by machines can destroy jobs. So when they destroy jobs, a lot of people will be unemployed. So there will be, of course, very good job, Ibrahim. Ibrahim saying low demand for workers. So there will be low demand for workers. Job losses means less people will be part of the trade union because they no longer work. So they're no longer a member, which means fall in the membership and government reducing the power of trade union. So there are 2 things that will happen. One, I think I'll take Ibrahim's point where he's saying, like demand for labor will fall. And that fall in demand for labor means there will be weaker trade union as unemployment will be high. Yeah, so you will see unemployment will be high, and therefore we could say they will have a low bargaining power. Normally what is seen is this, that when the trade unions tend to be more powerful in the markets where they are employed more. So a weak trade union happens primarily when they are in a market where there is not much of jobs for them. Also, they can be easily replaced. Also, the passage is saying that government is also trying to reduce the power of trade unions. Are you all with me? Government is also trying to reduce the power of trade unions, which is also another point that we need to put that here because that is going to be a problem. So yeah, capital intensive firms in future, which means firms will lose power, workers will lose power, they will be unemployed, they will be replaced by machines, and government will also try to basically weaken the power of trade union because they want to keep the wages as low as possible. Make sense? Last part of the question, this is a pretty long data response. We have almost spent the whole time discussing the data response, but it's a good one because we've been able to revise a lot of concepts here. Let's look at the last one, which says, discuss whether or not a rise in unemployment is harmful. So this is again a discuss question. So 3 points for why unemployment, UE means unemployment. Why is unemployment is harmful? And 3 points for why unemployment is not harmful. Okay. Remember, if you have a six marks question here, and there's always a discuss, you got to give both the points for you to get more marks. Okay. Siddharth is saying, very good point. Let's find why is unemployment harmful. Number one is that lower incomes leading to lower standard of living. Very good. Good job. This is a very good point. Another one would be the output or GDP will fall. That could be bad for the economy. Isn't that true? Another one could be you might have a problem of government to lose tax revenue. Why? Because people are losing job. Also, as unemployment benefits go up, there could be a possible of budget deficit. The government can run into a budget deficit, for example. Why would the government run into a budget deficit? Because they don't have the money. A lot of people are going to be getting unemployed, and therefore the government has to pay budget unemployment benefits, which means budget deficit will go up. An important point that you can also write about is this, that something which we discuss a lot in A levels when we could talk about is that government may tax people more to fund for its deficit, which can be bad for labor that is employed. Those people who are employed will be finding it really tough. And as a result of finding it really tough, they are the ones who would probably be, paying higher taxes, because now suddenly you don't have jobs available, and therefore those who are sort of employed are paying for those who are unemployed. In the long run, you can talk about this. By the way, in the long run, if this continues, people will lose skills. If I'm unemployed for many years, I may lose skill. Make sense? Let's talk about the last point, which is, why is unemployment not harmful sometimes? Well, we say this, that, unemployment, when unemployment is high, inflation is low. And the reason why it happens is because we say demand pull inflation will be low. Why? Because remember, demand pull inflation happens because of AD. Because AD falls, in unemployment AD falls, your price level fall. The whole economy will have lower unemployment. Do you guys get that? Are we good? So unemployment can result in actually lower aggregate demand, and therefore inflation can be low. Make sense? Number one. Number 2 point could be, high unemployment could also be not so bad for the environment. You could have less pollution. Less economic activity means less pollution. And you could basically, because of the fact there is lower output. One of the things that happened in COVID-19, guys, you'll be surprised, in COVID-19, while COVID-19 is really bad, in China, the pollution level went down significantly. It was probably one of the lowest in 20 years or more that China had actually clean air, because of the fact that the economic activity went down significantly. So we could argue this, that higher unemployment could actually be not bad when it comes to economic, when it comes to pollution, because there will be lower sort of economic activity. Any other point that we can write why unemployment can be not harmful? Very good point. Sadat has a very good point. He's saying this, that there could also be a possibility that lower wages, because of lack of demand, can cause basically cost of production to be low. That can also control inflation, but that can also be makes goods more affordable for people. That could be a way, one of the things we can say about that. Also, those who are employed might be working very hard to stay employed, so their productivity could be higher. Are we good? So this is the first part of our class. I think we've had a very good productive session where we were able to discuss the data response.